I always felt that the ATA was geared more towards the mega fleets, and that's who they were working with in depth. But after talking to Dan, it's every fleet. So the smaller fleet, the medium size, they have the same opportunity to get their voice heard.
The mega fleet company with 10,000 trucks gets one vote on safety policy. Dan's trucking company with 2 trucks gets one vote on safety policy. Your vote is equal.
Hello and welcome to Carrier Code, your inside track to the strategies, stories, and leaders driving the trucking industry forward. Today's episode is sponsored by Drivers Legal Plan, CDL Ticket Defense for Professional Drivers, and produced by Bulldog, Trucking's podcast pros. I'm Christy Choice, joined here by my co-host Rocco Marari. How's it going today, Rocco?
Christy, it is going well, and I am excited for what's about to happen. That's all I can say.
Oh my goodness. We have one heck of a guest today. And I mean, as much as we zip and zap across this country, we get to talk to this person quite a bit, right?
We do. And we get some interesting tidbits today for everyone.
Okay. Well, we are super excited about today's guest. Let's just jump right in. Dan Horvath from ATA is here with us. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Hey, Christy, good to be here with you.
Oh my goodness. Well, Rocco and I are so excited that you're here. Now, for those who don't know you, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at ATA?
Yeah, so I've been with ATA. It'll be 8 years, the beginning of 26. Currently the chief operating officer, but held a couple of various titles over the years, mostly in regulatory and safety. So been with the association, like I said, 8 years, but have a long history before that in trucking and in commercial vehicle safety generally. I kind of drank the Kool-Aid at an early age and just stuck with it.
I love it. You drank
Dan,
the
you sound
Kool-Aid.
like us. It's like all of us.
Once you're in, you can't get back out. So yeah,
it's definitely a lifestyle, isn't it?
It is, and so, I mean, long story short, when I kind of got into all this, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh, go Steelers. And I was always, as a kid, my parents always said, you're always with your trucks and your buses and you're making weird sounds, pretending, your trucks were breaking down and stuck in the mud and stuck in the snow. And I'm sure, looking back, they had a little bit of fear that I was going to grow up to be really weird. And while I'm weird, I think I'm okay, manageable level of weird. But in high school, a friend of mine, his family owned a bus company actually in Western PA. So they had school buses and like motor coaches. And one summer, my dad hounded me and said, "You need to get a job." And he said, "Hey, my uncle needs someone to wash buses in the middle of the night when the coach buses come in after a trip, clean them up, send them back out." So I got that job and started doing that, and kind of turned into in summers doing summer work as a mechanic's helper. So sweeping shop floors, and then turned into, doing oil changes and basic maintenance stuff. And I'm not kidding when I say early on, I couldn't tell you what end of a screwdriver was the right end. And that grew into doing a lot of cool things and learning about air conditioning systems and all hands-on job training. But on the DOT side of the safety side of things, we went through a DOT audit one day, and my boss said, "Hey, you're going to help us with the DOT paperwork going forward, the compliance work." So that was kind of my first, dip into the safety side of things, and learning all of the safety regulations that existed, and worked for that great family for a number of years, still stay in contact with them. I always attribute them to kind of where I got my start and what I did, but it was a small family run company at the time, and they've since grown to be a fleet of, I think, close to 500 some vehicles now, between school buses and vans and motor coaches. It was, if you haven't done it, working for family when you're not an actual family member, you're like the redheaded stepchild was pretty cool because you can sit there and back and watch, dad and son fight and the kids and all that. And then I kind of raised my hand and interject. But it was one of those small companies where you didn't have a title. You just did what you needed to do to get the job done. And as part of that, I probably later on as I, worked for them, said, I'll get my CDL one day. But it was one of those, when you turned 18, you got your CDL, whether you wanted to or not. And quite literally, I turned 18 in September, and I think it was shortly thereafter I had my commercial learner's permit. And I think it was like December or your following winter or something like that, that I went and took my road test on a school bus, believe it or not, and got my CDL. So I always make it clear, I was never spent time over the road trucking, but I spent a lot of time driving and getting a CDL at an early age, which is why I'm a huge advocate for the 18, 19, 20-year-old programs that are out there. I think we can do it right. I think it is for safe individuals like me that want to be in the industry, but that's my long, kind of tenured story. That led to other things, and here I am today sitting with you fine people.
Dan, that is a great story. And I think that's something that helps you bring a different perspective to the industry. Something that you don't see, from, everybody walking on the hill and so forth. You've lived that life. So you bring that experience in, and that really resonates with, everybody else within the ATA and the carriers. And that, again, that's another perspective that you typically don't see.
It isn't. And I don't, first off, I don't take it for granted. I am incredibly, thankful for the upbringing I had, the being able to do a little bit of everything, and his in this industry has helped me understand and be able to advocate on behalf of our industry in a better way. And I by no means pretend that I know it all. I'm learning every day, but having the different perspectives has been truly helpful. And joking, a lot of folks, I think I've lived in DC the last 13 years or so. And have been engaged, advocacy lobbying for the better part of 10 of those years. And I think oftentimes when you think of DC and advocacy organizations, associations, and lobbyists, you think of a suit wearing, doesn't know the reality, is going to go up, tell members of Congress and lawmakers, here's what things should be or how things should be. And we do a really good job of that, but the background that not just I have at ATA, but the other folks and our membership that drives what we do is really, really valuable. And I don't take it lightly. I'm blessed that I have had that background, and helps me to have different expectations. And, even back to the days on the bus side and how that led into the trucking industry, getting a job with DOT years ago as a contractor. Doing safety audits. It was really kind of one thing led to another to, again, where I'm at today. And I tell people all the time, I'm not the unicorn by any means. You hear all the time how many unique stories in our industry, the trucking industry, of how people got to where they're at today. Greg Hodgen, our current chairman of the American Trucking Associations, from Grondike Transportation, tank carrier in Oklahoma, he started as a mechanics helper. And married into the family, and then now is running that organization. So a lot of awesome stories like that. And I'm biased. I know we're all biased, but it's just such a great industry to be part of.
Yep, that is so true. Such a great industry. And I mean, I think if you would have asked like 17, 18-year-old me, what my profession would be, I wouldn't have been able to say trucking. I would not have, but I've always
I have a
loved
teaching
travel.
Degree. High school history is
Really?
my degree. Yeah, that's
Oh
what
my
I
goodness.
was going to go to school and teach high school, and drive buses part-time, college sports teams and things like that when I could. But yeah, look, I have the degree, so.
Yeah, well, I'm a marketing and communications major. So like to me, podcasting and trucking and all of the ways all of my worlds have collided is like really, really cool. But I love to hear people's journeys, like how they got from there, like from where they were to where they are now. And like, hey, the rest is history. And so, Dan, I'm not sure if you know, but the way that Carrier Code Podcast came to be was through the lead ATA program. Justin Copeland, Rocco, and myself were in a team, and we decided to do a podcast to talk about industry issues. And then we decided, oh my goodness, this is going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be exciting. And we are here. So I know that you also did the LEAD ATA program. Tell us about your experience and how long ago that was and how it shaped, your career path.
Yeah, talk about something that's worked out. So it's worked out. I mean, you guys are another success story. This is awesome. So
Yeah.
I worked before ATA. My job before this, I worked for a kind of the unique part of the industry, a driver staffing agency. So think of your general staffing firms that are out there, but we were a truck driver specific staffing firm. So we hired commercial truck drivers. We qualified them. We did training, compliance, all of that, just as if we were a trucking company, but we don't own trucks. And we leased those drivers. We call them lease drivers. We leased them out to motor carriers. So we had about 3,500, 4,000 drivers working for us, and I handled our compliance. And it was, I remember being in we were ATA members. Remember being in an ATA conference and seeing the first LEAD ATA class out on stage and thinking, this is pretty cool. I'd like to be part of this. And it was one of those where I kind of set it aside. And by the time I thought about it the following year, I had missed the deadline to apply. And same thing happened the following year. So long story short, I applied and got into the fourth LEAD ATA class. So we were the fourth year the program existed. And I knew a lot about ATA just by being a member. I had gone to the events, knew a lot of the people, but I didn't have the DC lobbying, government affairs background that what American Trucking Association does. I didn't know a lot about that, so I remember I did the Call on Washington visit, which I tell all the LEAD classes was my favorite. It was in the summer. I remember wearing a suit and tie and it being 90 degrees outside.
Yep.
Yeah. And you take it for granted, or at least I did, that members of Congress, for lack of it doesn't sound that nice, they work for us. I mean, we are their constituents. They are our representatives. And I think we take it for granted that, yes, you can walk down the halls, walk through, the congressional offices and walk into your member of Congress and meet with them. Or in a lot of cases, their staff. And that's pretty cool because not a lot of people, that live throughout the America, get to come to DC and visit with members of Congress. So that's when I really drank the Kool-Aid on kind of the government affairs side. And I thought to myself, this would be pretty cool. And I think that was like 2016 timeframe, 17 timeframe. And long story short, there was a job opening in safety at ATA, and I took it, which is why I came over to ATA. I joke with my previous employer, who they're great people, still talking to this day. I did not go into the LEAD ATA program thinking that this was going to get me a job at ATA, but it worked out. And yeah, it's an awesome program to learn more about our industry, more about what ATA does. And what's been really awesome for me from this side now is to see each of the classes that we have. And Christy, you guys what class were you?
12.
We're 12?
The 12th?
Right? Yeah,
We're going to go with
12.
that. If not, we're going to say we're the 12.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's a good number.
That sounds about right.
It's been awesome to see how each class has formed these kind of dynamics. I mean, look at you all right now. You've put together a successful podcast, and that's been really, really cool to see. And even just this past October, our new LEAD ATA class, I watched them on day one meeting in the convention center. Kind of quiet, not really talking with folks. And that was, I don't know, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning. And by that evening, after they had done a scavenger hunt through the city, they're best friends. Yep. They're in group chains talking with each other. So there's a lot of great things, but at a baseline, it's what an awesome opportunity to meet like-minded people that work in the industry with you, that help you understand that some of the same issues and things you're dealing with on a regular basis, it's not just you. And I mean, again, I'm biased, but what an awesome program.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you said about the Call on Washington, that was also, Rocco and I talk about it all the time.
That's where I was going to go right now.
Favorite meeting.
Yeah. That's
it was our favorite meeting.
I
learned so much, and I have never, the things that I didn't know right? And I mean, I live in Oklahoma. And so we were able to meet with, some representatives. And I was with a couple guys from Texas and Alaska. And together, I mean, we were pounding the pavement all day long. And I walked away so exhausted, but so exhilarated. It was probably like by far like the best experience. I've never considered myself like someone who's like super political and knowing like all the ways that our government works. But I walked away feeling like, oh, heck yeah, y'all work for us. And we're going to make sure that we push the trucking agenda forward. And so that was really cool.
Yeah. And Christy, I agree. Dan, that was something I wish everybody in the industry could experience, or they need to. That's, for me, that was a game changer. And the incoming class was asking me, and I know they were talking to Christy as well, about, what do we feel are one of our favorite, moments of lead ATA was. And that's out and about. That's mine without any question asked. I truly, truly love that portion of it. And I'll be back on calls on Washington. I just absolutely loved it. But, Dan, I did want to circle back on your previous experience with the driver leasing company. How do you feel that really helped propel you to the position you're at now within the ATA, and how that helps drive you going forward?
That's a great question. I mean, one of the things, the takeaways that I have that I still use this day, and I miss most days, some days not as much, but is that, again, we had about 3,500 drivers on the road in a given day, about 4,000 on the roster. And that's 4,000 different personalities and opinions on how things should be. And when we talk about advocacy and what I do now, I mean, we are advocating on behalf of the motor carriers that are members of ours, but of that, the drivers that work for the motor carriers, the technicians, all of the above. So one of the big parts of my previous role was I would do driver safety meetings. They were usually Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. A lot of weekends I'm eating up doing that. But I learn and continue to learn so much from drivers when you have those one-on-one conversations and you talk about their experience. I mean, let's be real. They're the boots on the ground, the day in, day out. They're the ones that are impacted by the regulations. When we talk about Congress, and legislation that's introduced and done. So when I would do these driver safety meetings, as much as they were, for me talking about, okay, we need to work on X, Y, Z, but to listen from them as well. And there were some times where, I mean, they're looking at me as at that point, late 20-year-old, early 30-year-old, that's saying, what does this guy know about driving and safety and anything? He's going to stand in the front of the room and tell me this. So I always made it a personal goal to change opinions on some of that.
Yeah.
For those individuals in the end to realize that, listen, we may not agree on everything, but I'm here to support you. I'm here to help with you. And I still do that to this day. When we're advocating for different regulatory changes or safety regulations, I'll get calls from drivers and I answer them primarily because I think a lot of times they leave a message and think that I'm never going to call them back. So I like surprising them. But I always joke that I think there's another association out there that sometimes we butt heads. I think they give my cell phone number out to these drivers. It's like I get a lot of the bad calls sometimes. But in the end, oftentimes after a heated initial discussion, we're able to get to a point where I can say, that regulation that's out there, why you have hours of service rules that tell you how long you can drive. I trust you when you tell me you're going to pull over when you're tired and fatigued. I trust you. But the reason we have regulations is for the guy or girl that didn't follow the rules and killed the family of 4. That's why we all have to suffer from the regulations. Yep. And we can usually get to a point of, I get it. That doesn't mean I like it, but that's why we have rules. So Rocket, a long way of, I think, answering your question is those early on interactions with the drivers have still helped me to this day, do what I do on behalf of the industry. And even just before we hopped on this podcast here, I was having a conversation about motor vehicle records and tracking of certain things, and being working for 5.5 years in a compliance department. That background has helped me to have an operational understanding of how the regulations work in reality, which has been invaluable for me.
And those typically are riveting conversations to be having as well. Let's be honest here, everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right. Here's a takeaway: memorize just one Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulation. Mine is 382.601, which is the Drug and Alcohol Handbook requirements. Memorize just one and throw that out there all the time, and you'll sound really, really smart.
Duly noted. I'm a 391 gal myself, So
there you go.
Well, Dan, you said something just a moment ago that I want to kind of dive into, because I attend lots of ATA conferences. And one of the things you said is ATA works on behalf of its membership, right? And there was a very staggering, realization during one of these conferences. A presenter said that ATA members are safer, right? Because they're a part of an association that's working for them. Help us connect some dots and make that make sense. What's your take on it?
Yeah. Great question. One we're proud of. So ATRI, American Transportation Research Institute, is not necessarily an affiliate, but we share, they have their kind of separate operating entity, but they're our research, side of the business, if you will. They did a study that showed that carriers that belong to state associations or national trade associations like ATA are found to be a safer fleet. And it's true to the extent of, you look at when we do safety conferences and other stuff, and we're talking about, regulations and safety, the people in the room usually aren't the ones that need to be hearing the message.
Mm-hmm.
It's the ones that aren't, the fly-by-night carriers, the ones that aren't doing the jobs that they should be doing out there. So the men and women that make up our membership and the companies that make up our membership are doing what they're supposed to be doing and going above and beyond. And not to go down that road, for the larger fleets, it's not inexpensive to be a member, of some of these associations, including our own. So the value that they receive from being part of that collective dialogue, but then also part of our advocacy efforts. And Krista, you pointed out, we are driven by our membership. And I'll go on my soapbox here for a second. Yes, we have mega fleets that are part of ATA. They are our biggest dues-paying members, but it's not the only folks we represent. A majority of our membership is actually medium and small-sized carriers. So we are a really broad, collaborative, cross-representation of the industry, from fleets with 10,000 trucks. From, I think, our lowest fleet at one point was an owner-operator and has expanded. I think he has 10 trucks in his fleet now. He's a member of ATA. So when we gather and when we talk about policy positions and where we're at in certain regulations, it isn't Dan Horvath and team sitting in a room in DC saying, here's what we're going to do on hours of service. It's driven by our membership. We're going out to the members and we're saying, all right, what do you think on this? Our safety policy committee, which is our biggest committee that drives ATA safety policies, is 157 different individuals representing different entities, different companies. So it's 157 opinions on how we advocate for a rule or rulemaking. And it's not easy to get to consensus sometimes, but we do our best to say, here's the recommendation we have. Let's figure out what the best approach is to find a common ground on this. And we've been able to do that with hours of service, with speed limiter policy, safety tech, a lot of stuff over the year that gets us to where we're at. And I think I'm really proud of the work that the team that we have does and being able to get everybody on the same page and advocate for what we need to.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, Dan, this is absolutely wonderful. Now, for all you carriers listening out there, I want to encourage you that you get out of it what you put into your membership. So we fully support you being members of your, state trucking associations and really getting involved with national organizations like the American Trucking Associations. And so we want to know your own personal stories. Email us at knowthecode@carriercodepodcast.com. We would love to highlight some of your wonderful success stories about membership and how it's gotten you farther faster by digging in and really leaning into your membership. Now, we will have more with Dan Horvath, the COO of American Trucking Associations, when we come back from break. Stay tuned.
Carrier Code is sponsored by Driver's Legal Plan, CDL ticket defense for professional drivers. Hey, it's Rocco from Carrier Code. Every professional driver knows how important it is to protect your CDL. A single ticket can put your livelihood at risk, And that's where Driver's Legal Plan comes in. With just a phone call, you can get specialized CDL ticket defense for just $2.98 a week. Don't let a ticket jeopardize your trucking career. Contact Driver's Legal Plan today and let them defend you like they have more than 400,000 other cases. When you need CDL ticket defense, there is only one, Driver's Legal Plan. Call 1-800-580-8789 or visit driverslegalplan.com for your free consultation. Again, that's 1-800-580-8789 or driverslegalplan.com.
All right, well, welcome back, everyone. We are chatting with Dan Horvath, the COO of American Trucking Associations today, and we've been rolling with our homie today, kind of just talking about ATA membership, digging in and understanding who Dan is, where he comes from, and connecting all those dots. So, Dan, the next question I have for you, can you tell us about some key challenges and opportunities that you're seeing for carriers today? Right now, there's a whole lot going on in the political landscape and the socioeconomic landscape, but make it make sense. Tell us your perspective.
Yeah, Christy. So, I think probably first and foremost, and for anybody that is in this space, they're reading the headlines and know what's going on. We have a serious issue right now with, and I'll generalize, with bad actors in our industry. And credit due where it should be given to the current administration, to Secretary Duffy and team for cracking down on this. This isn't a new issue. This has existed in previous administrations. I'll even go to say beyond the last 4 years as well. With drivers who are getting CDLs that should not be getting CDLs. And a lot of that goes back to training providers that are out there that are looking to skirt the system. We call them CDL mills. Folks that advertise, hey, come get your CDL in a couple of days and go on your merry way. And we've recognized this as an issue. We've been working ATA behind the scenes the last several years on the training providers, specifically working with other partners on this. But this has all come to a head with, some high profile crashes that sadly have resulted in loss of life that have put the spotlight, which is just sad because in our industry, you look at our industry, aviation and others, it takes those high profile incidents, crashes, loss of life, injury, to take action on this. So the current administration is working on cleaning a lot of this up. It's not going to be able to happen overnight. There are good and bad ways to address this. We've been working through both agency, contacts at the DOT, and also legislative. But one of the outcomes of this is you have members of Congress that say, okay, how can we help? And that's great. We've engaged with them. We even ATA sent a list of here's 6 things you can work on, such as cleaning up entry-level driver training, more enforcement of carriers, making sure when a bad actor is put out of service that they can't just go and create a new entity and start driving again. And we have our law enforcement advisory board, which Rocco is a part of, that has been working on a lot of these issues as well. But when you have members of Congress say, hey, we want to help, well-intentioned, sometimes there are bad things that can happen as a result of legislation. Like some of the legislation would have shut down, cross-border trade, which is critical to what our economy, our economy. So it's on us to work with lawmakers to make sure, how do we make sure bad actors aren't getting CDLs in the first place, and make sure we shut that down at the start versus trying to band-aid it after the fact. English language proficiency. I mean, that has been talking about something has been on a daily talking point since the beginning of the year. We support English language proficiency and buttoning out. That's been a rule that's been on the book since the 1930s. The bigger part of that, though, in our opinion, is we're relying on enforcement, the roadside inspectors, to kind of police and patrol this. Whereas how, should we be looking at when the driver gets a CDL for the first place, should we be testing for English proficiency then instead of trying to, it's like saying, here, we're going to give you your license, and then later on, we're going to figure out if you're really compliant with all the regs or not. So we're asking those type of questions. But what I've been saying is English language proficiency, new entrant safety audits, entry-level driver training. These should all be part of a broader category with enforcement. And we got to make sure we are increasing enforcement of all carriers that are out there. This isn't just a driver issue. I mean, this is also bad actors on the carrier side that are using drivers that they shouldn't be, that are, again, reincarnating after they go out of business or go out of service. So you can have the best written regulations, but if we're not consistently enforcing them, and if our men and women that are in enforcement don't have the tools and resources to do that, then it's difficult to make sure that we're keeping our rights safe.
Dan, and that's really interesting. And I want to give you the chance here to get on your soapbox a little bit more. So, and it's going to, this is going to tie into what we we're just talking about. But like you stated, the ATA is membership driven. So where are the areas that you're focusing on in the next couple of years that's really going to be of benefit for the carriers? So for those carriers that are on the fence of joining, tied into what we we're just talking about, how can that help them, and where can they get an advantage from becoming an ATA member?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, Rocco. So for instance, I mentioned the list of 6 items that we sent to members of Congress just a couple of months ago. But then even back in April, the English language proficiency bubbled up with us before it was really making mainstream headlines. When we had members of ATA come to us and say, listen, I'm hearing this from drivers of mine that are going through inspections, and they're hearing that if drivers can't speak English, they're being waved through, that they're not even inspecting the driver to begin with. So that kind of set off some red flags. And we talked to our motor carrier members, we talked to our drivers, and we start getting more of this information. And we say, okay, we need to get DOT involved here. So then we intervene with the Department of Transportation and say, Mr. Secretary, you need to do something about this. And they do. They listen. They respond as a result. So I think that's one small example of we are driven by what we hear from our membership on the ground. On this issue of bad actors and non-domiciled CDLs and everything that goes along with it, when the DOT puts a proposal out there, we then go to our membership and say, how does this impact you? And what do we need to do differently here to make sure we're pushing we're pushing, to increase the standards that exist out there. So that's been just a couple of things on the last couple of months we're working on. But beyond that, we're addressing, I mentioned the training issue, entry-level driver training, because in the grand scheme of things, when we talk about freight rates, and it is not a good time for fleets out there currently. In the grand scheme of things, it's getting bad actors off the road, including bad companies that are ultimately going to benefit the ones that are doing it legit. I just had a conversation yesterday with someone who was bidding freight, and they said, I got to do it with my driver needing to take their time off after 10 hours. Whereas this other fleet in town, I know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They say, I can do it for this rate because I'm going to get the driver's going to get there faster. So they're a bad actor. They shouldn't be in the industry from a safety standpoint, let alone a business standpoint. So it's the more voices we have as part of our membership that can work together that can do that. And we talked about our Colin Washington program, Rocco. That is one example of we're really good at advocacy. We're good at our jobs. But when we take a member that can sit in front of a member of Congress and say, my fleet in such and such town in Oklahoma is impacted by this way, that speaks volumes to the member of Congress versus what me or my colleagues can do any day. And that really matters. So it's not just on the safety front. I mean, we have a number of other issues too that we're pushing forward. The impacts of tariffs in our industry on freight rates and on transportation as well. Looking at ways to get benefits to veterans and to those that want to come out of high school and instead of taking a 4-year college degree course, they can go to get their CDL and have funds available through scholarships to get the monies available to them. So a lot of other issues on the regulatory front. The energy and environment sector has been huge in front and center. Trying to get rid of bad regulations that say we're going to go completely, exhaust emissions free and electric vehicles only, and they're relying on us and others to say, yeah, that doesn't work the way you think it will. And we have to have our members give examples of here, we're trying this. We want to reduce our carbon footprint, but it's just not working.
Yeah. Well, I love everything that you just said, Dan. I think that there's so much for us to look forward to in this great trucking industry that we love so much. And as we prepare to kind of wrap up our conversation today, I want each of us to share our key takeaways from today's conversation. Now, Dan, I already knew that you were a CDL holder and a lead ATA graduate, but I learned today that you are a training enthusiast, from your times at the staffing agency. And that's something that I share with you because I think that a lot of the regulatory updates, the safety and compliance, all of the changes that happen are happening very, very fast. But also, it's about fleets making sure that they inform their drivers. Right? They have to take that responsibility of training them. And if the person who's training isn't passionate about the training, it doesn't really get you anywhere. Right? So being able to say, "Hey, this is why you should listen. This is how it impacts you." Anyway, I could talk about training forever, but I learned that today. And then I guess my other takeaway here, use ATA as a resource and get involved, right? Because the initiatives that ATA is leading on behalf of the industry are a direct result of the feedback that they're getting from carriers. So if you're not already involved, find ways to get involved. Anyway, it just really excites me to hear about all the wonderful ways that ATA continues to advocate for the industry. Okay, Rocco, share your takeaways. What are yours?
All right, so mine's going to be quick here because I always felt that the ATA was geared more towards the mega fleets, and that's who they were working with in depth. But after talking to Dan, it's every fleet. So the smaller fleet, the medium size, they have the same opportunity to get their voice heard. The ATA is a feet on the ground for them. So do not be afraid to get involved if you're a small fleet. You hold the same weight, I believe, in the ATA's eyes as one of the mega fleets. So that's really my takeaway is, the ATA is here for the industry as a whole.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. And that's a really good perspective too, Rocco. I really didn't think about it, but we talk to so many carriers of a lot of different sizes and understanding that everybody matters. Every voice matters. I think that was really powerful. All right, Dan, what are your takeaways from the conversation? What do you want our listeners to know?
I want the listeners to know that I didn't put Rocco or you up to what you just said there, because that's music to my ears. Yeah, I know. But my takeaway is echoing that. Yes, we are. You can read stuff about us online. My first takeaway is don't believe every single thing you read in social media forums. There has been
that part.
Yeah, there's been so much bad information, not just about stuff that we're working on, but like in general. I mean, it's really bad, but that's a whole other podcast you guys could focus on. But we are, when I talked about our policy committees earlier, we have a board structure and governance structure where the mega fleet company with 10,000 trucks gets one vote on safety policy. Dan's trucking company with 2 trucks gets one vote on safety policy. Your vote is equal. So while we say the big guys and girls, they pay the bills, but it's the medium and smalls that we're working and listening to on a regular basis and driving our advocacy. So if you ever hear something that we're working on, or you have a question of like, why is ATA asking for XYZ regulation? Call us, ask, because there's a reason. It's not just that we're trying to put more onus on the industry. We are in a deregulatory environment right now. We're talking about less regulations, and we want to button up the regulations that are on the books already and make sure we're enforcing those. So I'd encourage you to check us out to take in one of our events that we have. We have our 2 main events, our big exhibition in October. But if you're a safety director, we have our Safety Management Council, which is literally all safety directors, managers. That it's a nerd convention for safety folks like myself, because we can talk to each other. And then we have our technology maintenance folks, the technicians. I mean, we have a lot of great aspects of our industry and different segments that have their events throughout the year.
All right. Love it. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your impact on the industry and for sharing all of this wonderful information today with the Carrier Code podcast family. We really appreciate you.
No, thank you guys. This is awesome. And for our listeners, especially our drivers out there, thank you for what you do day in and day out. I don't envy you. I know the some of what you deal with just on my 6-mile commute into DC every day with a lot of crazies out there. So thank you. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have jobs. We wouldn't be here sitting here today. So we appreciate everything.
All right. Well, very well said. All right. Well, stay tuned. We're going to be wrapping it up with Carrier Code Podcast when we come back from break.
Want even more Carrier Code? Visit us online at carriercodepodcast.com and follow us on socials at Carrier Code Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. That's how we keep the conversation going.
Well, welcome back, everyone. What an amazing conversation that was. Like, so much good information. Rocco, like, I don't even have words. I think that everything was fantastic. What do you think?
It was great. We've both known Dan for a very long time. So to have him on and just to learn more about him, that he didn't know how to use a screwdriver. I mean, that's something I would have never guessed. It was something great. It's not something that you learn, just in the conversations within the ATA. But more importantly, it really drove home that the ATA is out there for the carrier, really putting all their effort in there to make the roadway safer and, again, to help them with the regulations and so forth. So, anybody, if you do have any questions, please go to the ATA website, get involved, just give them a call, speak with them. They are more than happy to help you out. And again, truly, they are a great organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't believe everything you read. You got to experience it for yourself. You get out of it what you put into it. And so anyway, such great conversation. And we really appreciate Dan for being here. Carrier Code is sponsored by Driver's Legal Plan, CDL ticket defense for professional drivers, and produced by Bulldog, Trucking's podcast pros. New episodes drop every week, so be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss an episode. You can listen on your favorite podcast platform, watch on YouTube, or visit us anytime at carriercodepodcast.com. You'll also find us on all social channels at Carrier Code Podcast. Thanks for joining us, and until next week, I'm Christy.
And I'm Rocco.
And this is Carrier Code.